of the journey, and the State Department concluded that it can be expected to attract more public attention and interest than any previous visit by a foreign statesman to modern Germany, in part because it would be JFK's first trip to Germany since assuming office, and the first time that an American president went to Berlin since 1945. Plus, the trip was coming at what State Department described as a time of change and flux in Western Europe. Now, preparations for the trip to Europe, and especially the visit to Germany, began in earnest and had far-reaching significance. Now, following an ongoing foreign policy battle with the Soviet premier, facing criticism at home on the necessity of a European trip, the president clearly believed that a stop in Berlin would make a powerful statement of U.S. commitment to the city, to freedom, and the Western Alliance. Now, JFK's European trip aroused considerable criticism at home and abroad by those who viewed it as neither desirable nor necessary. Some argued that the growing racial tensions, unrest, and violence in the South needed the president's undivided attention. But as one reporter observed, for him to cancel the trip on the grounds of racial disturbances at home are so bad he cannot leave the country would be a sad admission which would undermine faith in America. Much of the political uneasiness in Europe stemmed also from questions regarding American foreign policy. And JFK thinks that his presence may be of vast importance at this time. Finally, the West German daily newspaper, the Tagesspiegel, noted that JFK wanted direct contact with the people, and the president will personally renew his commitment to Berlin. That observation was absolutely correct. A strong show of U.S. determination in West Berlin outweighed any formal discussions of its status. The trip to Germany and Berlin would go far in setting the tone for the next series of discussions between the Western Allies and Premier Khrushchev. On June the 10th, just prior to the European trip, JFK delivered at Washington, the American University, a very important speech on U.S. foreign policy that really basically called for an end to the Cold War, for a new way of looking at peace, at solving world problems, at cooperating with the Soviet Union. The tone was strikingly conciliatory, and the president offered specific steps toward a stronger peace. East German authorities praised the speech highly, calling it the most far-reaching statement by an American president since the Second World War on a policy of peaceful coexistence against the politics of the American imperialists in the Cold War. His speech on June the 10th seemed to be setting the tone for his upcoming visit. Now, when the White House announced the president's schedule for the 10-day European trip, it became clear that after stops in Cologne, Bonn, and Frankfurt that included meetings with West German political leaders and several speeches, that JFK would fly to West Berlin, arriving there on the morning of Wednesday, June the 26th. In Berlin, it was planned for him to give 3 speeches, to stop and view the Berlin Wall at the Brandenburg Gate at Checkpoint Charlie, and it would last less than a day, from about 9:45 in the morning to 5:15 in the evening when he was scheduled to fly out. West German media covered the event with more than 1,200 accredited journalists. They broadcast it live on radio and television, broadcasts that went over into East Germany as well. Now, from his arrival in West Germany on June the 23rd, and his first remarks after stepping out of the plane at the Bonn-Cologne airport, JFK was warmly received by the West German public. In Bonn, he addressed what the press described as hundreds of thousands of cheering Germans, and he pledged that the U.S. and its armed forces would remain in Germany to defend freedom. At Frankfurt's historic Paulskirche, JFK spoke about freedom, democracy, liberty, and again the commitment of the U.S. to remain in West Germany. He told the audience, "The United States will risk its cities to defend yours because we need your freedom to protect ours. The purpose of our common military effort is not war but peace, not the destruction of nations but the protection of freedom." And he added, "We work toward the day when there may be real peace between us and the communists." In Berlin, JFK spoke early in the day to a group of union construction workers, voicing his identification with the city by telling them, "West Berlin is my country." His motorcade toured the city before pausing at the Schöneberger Rathaus, the city hall of West Berlin, where he delivered his most famous speech to a crowd numbering about between 300,000 and 400,000. In a short speech, less than 10 minutes, in it, the president voiced his commitment to Berlin in unmistakable terms and memorable phrases that rang through the audience. For those who, as he said, for those who apologize for some elements of communism or excuse its excesses, he told them, "Lass die nach Berlin kommen." He used the German expression, "Let them come to Berlin to see for themselves." Standing not far from the Berlin Wall, he called it the most obvious and vivid demonstration of the failures of the communist system. JFK's most famous line came twice in the speech, beginning and at the end when he forcefully announced, "Ich bin ein Berliner," I'm a Berliner, firmly linking all those committed to freedom, most specifically himself, to that city. Before leaving Berlin, he gave yet another speech affirming, as he put it, my country's commitment to West Berlin's freedom, and he stated our confidence in its people and their courage. Now in Berlin and other German cities, JFK had told the audiences and television viewers that this was a period of transition for the Atlantic Alliance, and new links must be found to hold us together. In every speech, Washington Post commented, every speech he makes, he stresses the ties that link the free world in such a way that the security of one is the security of all. He was speaking not only to the Berliners that came out to listen to him, he was speaking to millions of Europeans in Western Europe and Eastern Europe, assuring them that, as he put it, this is a new man in a new Europe, and while he pays tribute to the past, he's looking to the future. Now, not to be outdone by the American president, and in the second part of this presentation, I'll have much more to say about the view from East Germany, Walter Ulbricht announced just 2 days before JFK's visit that Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev would be visiting Berlin to help Ulbricht celebrate his 70th birthday. Khrushchev was clearly not pleased with the outpouring of adoration for the American president, and he actually moved his visit up several days, his own version of public diplomacy. As Khrushchev told an audience of workers who got the day off so they could go out and hear him, he said, Kennedy went to Berlin to hold up the trousers of the Social Democrats, one of the leading West German parties, but nothing will come of it. I have read that the President of the United States looked at the wall with dissatisfaction. He did not like it at all, but me, I like it. It pleases me tremendously. Now, Khrushchev blasted the West Germans, what he called the revanchists, as he called West German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer and the other political leaders, for their unrelenting advocacy of a Western presence in Berlin. The Soviet premier spoke to a crowd numbering at best several thousand, in contrast to the several 100,000 that turned out for JFK in West Berlin. Most of the people who turned out were members of the Communist Youth Group who didn't have much choice. And finally, facing a thunderstorm, Khrushchev halted the speech, drove through the city in the motorcade that observers insisted compared in no way to the triumphant procession of Kennedy through West Berlin. The Associated Press estimated that most, maybe 250,000 people saw Khrushchev during the whole time in Berlin, compared to 1.4 million who came out and saw JFK in West Germany. Now, following the visits of Kennedy and Khrushchev to Berlin in the summer of 1963, each making strong public statements of support, tensions over the divided city persisted. During the fall, incidents along the wall around the access routes to Berlin continued to heighten tensions. Each time, American forces responded firmly. Little was to change in the situation of Berlin through late November 1963. In conclusion, we could sum this up. From 1958 through November